The following segments are pre-recorded and sponsored by Longworth Productions.
Major funding for Triad Today comes from Blue Cross Blue Shield of North Carolina, making health care better for all. This episode first aired in July of 2009 and featured 9 great TV dads. Hello everyone, I'm Jim Longworth and welcome to Triad Today Treasures, where we go back to the vault and replay some memorable programs from the past 3 decades.
Tell us, who told you the facts of life, the birds and the bees? Was it your dad? Did you learn it on the street? What age were you? What was the circumstance? Stephen Collins.
I think I was 11 or 12, and my father, I know that he was prompted by my mother. He was sort of dutifully said, okay, we have to have a very serious talk. And I sort of figured out what it was going to be before it happened, we went into, I remember we went into the guest room, and he sat down in a chair, and then he spoke for about 15 minutes, and what I heard was, I did not hear a word he said because I was sitting there going, oh my God, my father's telling me about sex. And not a word penetrated. I had to learn it all the hard way at later times.
So, Michael?
Well, as a matter of fact, had I not been able to hear the words, I could have seen the pictures because my father was a draftsman and drew me pictures. Not as, it wasn't as prurient as you think. It was, it was very, it was like a Grey's Anatomy textbook, that boring. And as I had been raised Catholic, I wasn't supposed to have sex until I was 30 anyway. So the boredom was fine for many, many years. But I learned from my dad.
All right, Reggie?
I'm still trying to find out.
That's the secret.
I would ask my father questions, and he would look at me and say, "What's wrong with you?" But basically, I learned from my older brothers and people who are older than me. I would ask questions. I didn't want to go out on the street and learn, so I would always ask my brothers, and they would always tell me, things. So.
All right, Mr. Pryor.
My mom sort of came. She was. There was a little bit of hippie to my mom, which made me. Family Ties was, a great show for my youth, and really struck a chord with me. So she was looking to explain it at the drop of a hat, basically. Any excuse. I think I was 6. And I said, oh, there's a baby. And she said, okay, where babies come from is when a man and a woman love each other very much, So she launched into it several times before I had any understanding of what was being spoken about. And finally, when I was about 8, it sank in. And I went around telling everybody, but for some reason, I think, because I was an 8-year-old, so I was given a bit of information that no other 8-year-olds had. So I was very important in the neighborhood for a short period of time, and I enjoyed that. But I misunderstood to this day. Well, not to this day. I mean, obviously, I got it eventually. But other kids who knew me at the time said, yes, you told everybody that the man puts his finger in the lady's belly button. So obviously I was a little unclear on the concept.
And Patrick?
It's a hard one to follow. I'd like to call a friend. Wow. Yeah, well, actually, my youngest son sat me down. He wanted no one else in the will, and he said, I don't remember, actually.
You don't remember?
It was one of those things where it wasn't important to me, until I was 3 or 4, and by then I knew everything.
Dick Van Patten, let's hear from you.
I was 14 years old, and my father told me, and I was thinking, oh boy, I hope he's right.
I seem to remember piecemealing my education through Playboy magazines and native women from National Geographic. Yeah. All right, and finally, we want to hear from Mr. Dick Van Dyke on this important question. How did you learn about the facts of life?
I didn't know what puberty was till I was almost past it. A lot from Sears and Roebuck catalogs. Remember those?
Sears and Roebuck?
Yeah.
I thought that was a hardware magazine.
Not in those days. Actually, my wife told me most that I know.
I am so
Why
frustrated.
can no one help me?
Waiting
This is
until
a nightmare.
work. I think it's healthcare is broken.
At Blue Cross and Blue Shield of North Carolina, we get it.
Really?
Really. That's why we're making healthcare better for all. Starting with you. Yes, you, Daryl. We're making plans easier to navigate by putting your benefits, prescriptions, and details all in one place. Convinced?
No. But it's a start.
We'll take it. Blue Cross North Carolina. Making healthcare better for all. Starting with you.
Tell us something about your dad. It can be serious or funny or whatever you think of, but something about your dad that you want to share with us. What was he like?
Nobody get off on a rant here.
Did he influence you in certain ways in your career?
Well, he certainly didn't much about the facts of life. Yeah, you know, my dad was, he didn't try to teach me much of anything. He's from that very laissez-faire generation where he just figured we'd figure it all out ourselves. But he was a great example to me socially. He often held opinions that were not popular at the dinner table or in the party, and he didn't back off of them. He didn't state them aggressively, but he didn't apologize for his opinions, even when they weren't what was in the room, you know, what would have really been the coin of the realm in that room or at that party. And he knew how to disagree in a way that was provocative and gentlemanly. And I really admired that about him. And he stood up for what he believed in, but in a very quiet way.
Okay. Michael?
Someone had actually asked me this earlier this evening, and I think the answer was, if I've learned anything from him, it was commitment in a certain way. That is, he was an only child, a nice, quiet Methodist boy who married into a group of insane Irish Catholic sisters, my mother being one of them, and he didn't know what he was in for. And they were all quite a handful, and when you got one, you got the whole bunch. And my dad, over the years, committed himself not only to my mother, but to her crazy sisters, and to my mother's mother when her health failed and she had to give up her home, and she came to live in our two-bedroom house in a working-class area of Chicago. And I really think he was in it for the long haul, and it was difficult, but I didn't hear a lot of complaint. There was a lot of drinking, but no. and he was a teetotaler as well, because he had come from a line of people who were not. And so I don't know how he took it all. I think, but it was commitment. He stayed through some pretty rough times in a very committed way.
All right, Reggie?
Well, my father was a Navy man, and he didn't have much tolerance for bull stuff, you know, and he taught me, he wasn't a patient man, so he taught me patience from being not patient, because he didn't understand the arts and things like that. I want to be an actor. He didn't understand any of that. You know, he wanted to, you know, he felt that somebody should have a job and, you know, be serious about that. And I always felt that I would prove him wrong by saying, you know, you can do that. You can, you know, who you want to be and whatnot. So, and I did. And before he passed away, he came to me and he said, "You made something of yourself, and I'm so proud of you." And that meant a lot to me, you know. So that's how it was.
All right, John? Because your dad was an actor, right?
My dad is an actor, and my parents were divorced when I was 4. So, and my dad moved away to California to sort of take his career to the next stage, you know. And so I didn't see him for a very long period of time in my youth, but I remembered he had these leather zip-up Beatle boots. That I just loved, and I missed. You know, it was just this. You know, part of him that was so indelibly etched, into me. And then when he finally moved back to New York to do a play, I visited him backstage, and I saw, and after he was putting on his shoes, and he wasn't putting on the Beatle boots. It was, of course, it was 15 years later or whatever, and it had been so long, and I realized, wow, I've got to get to know my dad. I didn't really get to know him.
Right.
And what's been great as an actor is to earn his respect, just straight up as an actor, and get to know the guy, who's a lovely, lovely man, and I wish, I'd gotten to be around him more as a kid. So.
Billy, tell us about your dad.
Well, I just told you a little bit.
Yeah, not that
colorful guy.
I think that's enough.
Let's get Bill. Let's go on.
I have a few of them.
All right.
My dad was from Kansas City, Missouri. He was devoted to his dad. He started, my grandfather started a hardwood lumber business. It was a wholesaler of hardwoods in the Midwest, and my dad went to work for his dad when he was 16. And my dad, I never knew my grandfather. He died before I was born, but I know my dad was very devoted to him, and my dad is the person I measure everyone by. And I'm one of the luckiest guys I know, because my dad will be 89 years old next month, and he's still my closest confidant. He's the person that gave me, I mean, when I told him I wanted to come out here and pursue a career, he was a little worried about that, but he was always supportive. But the thing I remember most about him, and I'm kind of, from hearing these other guys talk about their dads, was my dad is a great student of human nature. He was a lumber salesman, and he would come back from the road. He was always gone for 2 or 3 days. He'd always have great stories and great expressions, like the one I used earlier. And, but his thing was what he taught me was that, take time to talk to somebody. He's a natural interviewer. And you're on a plane or you're on a bus, or we all end up in disparate groups in life. But he'd always strike up a conversation and like, well, where are you from? Oh yeah, I've been down that way. And he always got something from that exchange, and it was a nice thing. So I think my dad was a great socialist in terms of being a social man who had a great humanity, and he still does. He still, if you meet my dad, he's putting you on stage. He's asking you where you're from.
Right.
Great guy.
Hi, I'm Jim Longworth, reminding you that Triad Today also airs on GTN Spectrum Channel 13 and streams on WFMY Plus, free on Roku and Amazon Fire.
There are people here who knew of my father. I guess he taught me, you would have to know my dad, and I'll one at a time talk to you all later after the show. He taught me when you're going to drink an incredible amount of alcohol, never wear your best shoes. I'll explain that later to those few of you who haven't experienced that. He shot Santa Claus when I was 3 years old.
Whoa. He shot Santa Claus.
Yeah, that was when he was not wearing his best shoes. When I was 3 years old on Christmas Eve, he got a wild notion and grabbed his shotgun. We lived in Montana, and went out on the porch and blasted away and came back in and said, "There, the bastard's dead." I swear to you, it's true. So my mother worked overtime that night making things right. But what I will say is similar to everything that he did. I look back on it now, and I swear to you, I'm not on a water tower with a high-powered rifle. I think I turned out okay. And I've learned things from him that I use to this day in his social ability to relate to people. These things were things that are just myths and things in our family that actually happened, but his social skills as a bartender and the youngest of 13 children was something that I carry with me to this day, and I still cry on Christmas.
Dick, I cheated a little bit, Dick, and read a story about your dad, because if you don't know, Dick has founded a pet food company, and it's a very special company, and he's a pet lover. And but I read this story that your dad used to take you to pet stores a lot on the weekends when you were a kid, right?
Yeah,
my father was highly intelligent, not educated, but so smart. And every Saturday, I wanted to have a pet shop when I was a kid, but he would take me every Saturday. I would buy a different pet. And I bought a little alligator once. This is true. And I bought a little alligator for $1 once, a baby alligator. It got bigger and bigger and bigger. Finally, we kept it in the bathtub. And then finally, nobody could take a bath. And so finally, my grandmother said, "Get rid of that alligator." So I took it to the Central Park Zoo. And it's probably still there because alligators live
alone. Brian, tell us about your dad.
Oh, gosh. Yeah. You know...
I knew that was
It's my dad was a shoe salesman. He sold zip-up Beetle boots to actors, and that's how he made his living. No, actually very comfortable, but mine is pretty similar to John's. My dad was an actor as well, and he was in everything. He died. I watched him die in everything. He was an army guy or a cavalry man or something like that. But my parents also divorced, and I didn't see my dad for like 10 years during formative years. And then years later, we got back in touch, and now we formed a new relationship, and it's really a great one. And it's interesting how you go through life and you don't know what your plight is going to be and what cards you're going to be dealt, but it turned out the way it's supposed to turn out, I think. You know?
Yeah. Dick, your dad, nicknamed Cookie.
Yes, how do you know that?
Salesman. I did my homework. Salesman for the Sunshine Biscuit Company.
Salesman.
Wow. Tell me about him.
Well, my relationship with my dad was a little different. He was a traveling salesman, of course. He was only home on weekends. And so my association was with my mother, emotionally, because my dad was rather distant. But I grew up during the Depression, and when times were really tough, and we were constantly in debt and worried about money. Well, I was born, the stock market crashed in, 29? I was 4 years old. And I lost everything. But as a matter of fact, if my parents were alive, I'd move back in with them. I think it got so bad. My dad, what his saving grace was that he had a great sense of humor about his condition in life and about himself. And I can remember laughing until I had tears in my eyes. And my mother, the same way. They both could laugh so hard
they were
about their poverty.
Yeah.
And my brother Jerry and I have often talked about it. We didn't know we were poor. We had wonderful childhood.
That's great.
I think better than they have today because we weren't micromanaged. You know?
Yeah.
Our summer vacation was ours to do what we wanted to.
Sure.
It was great days.
I got free meals. What do you mean? No, seriously, how much did you pay us? I didn't pay anything. I learned how to cook all of these fresh foods that were delivered to my house. Everything in that grocery bag that's fresh, I had a recipe for it, and I know how to cook. It encouraged us to eat better, to shop better, make better decisions.
If you could play any other TV dad in history other than the one that you did, or one that you admired most, you could answer it both ways, and or. I admired him most. I wanted to play that role if I could have gotten it. I keep picking on Stephen because we're going in order, but let's start with Stephen.
He's the most erudite.
Yeah, well,
I'd probably choose something utterly different from me. I'd choose Dennis Leary's role, on Rescue Me. I mean,
right.
I think that's about as good as it gets from, Or I'd go the other way, and it would be, you know, the archetype Robert Young on Father Knows Best. You know?
Okay. You might be surprised with something in a little bit since you said that. Michael.
I don't have anything too terribly recent because I've, as time has gone on, I've become less of a television watcher over time, but I do. So I go backwards to people like, well, I mean, again, I thought of this many times tonight. I always loved Hugh Beaumont on Leave It to Beaver.
Right.
And I'm sorry he's gone. I would have loved to
What was in
have
that
seen
pipe,
him.
though? He always had to get that pipe going.
Right, exactly. I thought I'd have a pipe and slippers waiting for me just to get in this chair. And I'm so glad I'm sitting in this particular chair because then I don't have to look at it. Color is unbelievable. At any rate, I always loved Leave It to Beaver because the kids were really allowed to be kids, I love all their friends, Wally's friends Lumpy, and of course Eddie Haskell, and you know, Beaver's pals, and you know, they were real kids, and I grew up on that, and that was all one of my favorite things.
Right.
I'm sorry, Hugh Beaumont isn't here for me to tell
All
you.
right, Reggie.
I've met Tony Dow. That was a big deal.
Well, for me, I was a big fan of the Rifleman, Chuck Connors.
Yes.
I used to love the relationship he had with his son.
Yeah.
You know, there was just no black people at that time.
Hey, wait. Sammy Davis Jr. guest starred as a gunslinger on The Rifleman.
I missed that episode.
Well,
Well, good.
okay. So you liked Lucas McCain?
Yeah,
I did
it's
too.
great.
All right, John?
I would have to say Dick Van Dyke, that gentleman. You know, that speech that they showed actually in the thing of Where Do Babies Come From, you know, it just, I was lucky enough to have a moment like that on my show where Angus asks me what a booty call is, and I have this extensive monologue about, oh, well, you know, in the Old West. But just, you know, that was sort of my homage, so thanks, man. That's wonderful, wonderful stuff.
All right, Billy?
John Aston in the Addams Family. I love that show. My dad used to cut out the Charles Addams cartoons out of the New Yorker and stuff, and I loved the way he was so into his wife and the way they were, and the kids were kind of there, but it was really great. Really great. But weirdly enough, all the TV dads I grew up kind of remembering, there was something that happened to the mother. The wife was out of the picture. I mean, Dick, you had a wife, but the Rifleman, I mean, what was the deal there? Did he shoot her by accident? And what was the deal with Andy Griffin and Opie? I mean, was that his bastard kid, or what was that?
Courtship of Eddie's father?
What was it? Yeah, courtship of Eddie's father? I mean, Uncle Bill, was he their father? Or uncle?
Really?
What the hell happened to Aunt Dorothy? I mean, you know, it was nutty. I mean, and look, I mean, you got
You're really wound up about this.
Wait a second. You got My Three Sons, and you got William Demers, his Uncle Charlie. What did he knock off? The mother? Ended up on the payroll? I mean, you can keep going with this stuff.
You're really making up for it.
Ben Cartwright. Now, what was the deal with the cook? What was the deal with the cook?
Ben Cartwright had 4 boys by 4 different wives.
He must have, because they sure didn't look alike. Or maybe they were
Patrick Duffy.
I always thought Fess Parker's wife on Daniel Boone was the hottest woman in a long
And she also played in The Rifleman.
I have ever seen in my life.
Who was it?
Patricia Blair.
Yeah, Patricia Blair.
Yeah.
She was so beautiful. So, you know, for all the other reasons, all the other dads that are talking about were cool, but I just thought Fess Parker hit pay dirt.
There you go. Dick Van Patten.
Well, I think I would have had the most fun playing Carol O'Connor on All in the Family. Now, I want to say one thing though, and I think Carol O'Connor was wonderful. But now maybe you won't agree with me. I think he was stealing a lot of stuff from Jackie Gleason. Think about it. Remember the Gleason show? You're too young. But I think that Carol O'Connor stole a little from Jackie Gleason, but he did it to perfection.
All right.
Well, they wanted Gleason to begin with.
Oh, they did?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't even know that.
Yeah, Carol told me, yeah.
They also wanted you to play the son-in-law, Dick, the son-in-law on the Danny Thomas show, and they were afraid.
They did?
Yeah. I had lunch with Pat Harrington the other day, and apparently you were the first pick, and they thought you might be too strong and might upstage Danny Thomas. So
I had the nose for it.
well, on the quest, I digress. I'm sorry, Brian. You're if you could be any other TV dad.
Speaking of stealing, when I was starting to work on Malcolm in the Middle, I really didn't know where that character was going to go, but I did know one thing. All I had to do was look at my hero, Dick Van Dyke, to just, I adore you, you know that, and he has always been my idol, and every stitch of comedy that I've ever been able to obtain has come this way, so thank you.
Yeah, baby.
Thank you.
Yeah, baby. Hell yeah.
I owe you a lot of commission money, by the way.
And Dick Van Dyke.
I've been his best PR guy.
Well, I know you have. This will be a tough question.
He was on Diagnosis Murder.
I know.
On a two-part, played a homeless guy. One of the best performances, and I've been a fan ever since.
Yeah.
The guy does comedy, he can do anything.
A lot of people have been on your shows.
Oh, yeah.
Raise your hand if anybody's worked with Dick.
Almost.
How do you like that?
At Sutton Brothers, we're confident we can help you solve your heating, cooling, plumbing, and electrical needs.
So confident that we'll fix it or it's free. Our highly trained technicians will diagnose your problem and fix it with either a repair or replacement.
And if we can't fix it, you won't pay the trip fee.
So the next time you have a problem, call us.
We'll make sure you're completely satisfied.
Guaranteed.
Call Sutton Brothers today and be confident things will be done right. Schedule online at suttonbros.com.
Major funding for Triad Today comes from Blue Cross Blue Shield of North Carolina, making health care better for all.
Dick Van Patten, at age 16, I have it on good authority that you dated a stripper and she made you get a tattoo. I want you to say yes or no and confess to this.
Yeah, that's true.
Can we see it, Dick?
Yeah.
See it?
You got a follow-up question?
He wasn't wearing his best shoes that
Where that tattoo might be.
No, it's up on my arm. It's a horseshoe. It's a horseshoe. She made me get it. It was stupid. She said, I bet you're not brave enough to get it to her, she said. I said, no, I'm brave enough. I was trying to impress her. And so they start. In those days, they didn't use the electric needle. They used a real needle.
Ow.
I can't stand blood, and the blood's streaming down my arm. And she said, does it hurt you? I said, no. I said, oh, what a dopey thing to do. When and then I thought, I'd make out or something. Nothing.
Nothing.
Thanks for watching this special edition of Triad Today. I'm Jim Longworth.